Right. Hello, everyone. This is Mastering Bid Packages Strategy for Success, and I am Drea Piper. So, a little bit about me. I am a design supervisor at Workspace in Des Moines, Iowa. I have been a CET user since 2018, and this is my fifth year presenting at the CET experience. So, if you have worked on an RFP before, you have probably felt like this at some point in your career. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today will hopefully help you feel not this way. So some things that we'll touch on are RFP process, RFP tracking, team approach, CET template, and additional tips and tricks. So at Workspace, we have a process that we put in place when it comes to RFPs, which I have highlighted here. Um, So I will walk through this quickly. Once someone receives a request for a proposal, whether it be a salesperson or a design person or anybody in the company, the first step is to send it to the leadership team for tracking, which I will go into what that looks like in a little bit. But after that, the next step is for leadership and the account manager, if applicable, to decide if we are going to bid on the project or no bid. So if we are bidding, a team is established and a kickoff meeting is scheduled. And then during that kickoff meeting, we will review the bid as a group, gather questions, identify key manufacturers so we can secure discounting, and then we will divide up work among the group. And then lastly, the account manager will send out calendar invites of key dates and schedule touch base meetings to keep the project on track. So that is kind of the process that we have at Workspace. So next I am going to go into RFP tracking. So we use an online platform called Smartsheet to track incoming RFPs. This is just what we use, but I'm sure there are probably other tools available that are very similar. But we use this tool to track key variables to analyze instances of when we are winning and when we are losing. This document provides our team with informed insights to guide future decisions on whether we bid or no bid on future projects. We do limit this document to just leadership team, so not everybody can just go in and start making edits. It is just our leadership team that has access. But what's nice about it is we can, with this particular platform anyways, we can sort and filter by certain criteria, as well as export to a dashboard to really get a good idea of our whole RFP process. So I'm going to jump over into Smartsheet and just kind of walk through some of the information that we track and why we track it. I'm not going to go over all of them, but just some key ones. So the first one I want to point out, there we go, is type and lead source. So we have a couple in here. RFP and RFI are going to be our most common ones that we're tracking. In addition, though, we are also tracking warm leads, cold leads, and then manufacturer leads and manufacturer targets. So this is nice because we can kind of filter and see, okay, how many cold leads are we actually winning and are they worth our time to explore? The next column here is if we wrote the bid. Our hope is that if we are writing the bid that we are winning the business. So that's nice to keep track if we are in fact winning that business, or if we're not, then is it worth our time to be writing bids? Next up, we have win, loss, or did not bid. So that is a drop-down menu. You see here we can select won, loss. We also have partial award in here, and then did not bid. So that is always helpful to track. Next, we just have client information. So I am going to kind of move on over to type of RFP. So this is nice to track because we can see if there are certain types that we excel at, or if there is a pattern where we are constantly losing certain types. So types that we are tracking are open product, product specific, design forward, and then we do also do architectural product. The next column is value drivers. So basically, what is the driving decision on the RFP? Kind of similar to type of RFP, we like to see if there are certain drivers that we excel at, or if there are certain ones that we struggle with. So some of the ones we have listed here are price, reuse existing assets, hybrid working, bring people back to the office, growth accommodation, attraction and retention, destination, acoustics, and team environment. We can also add to this if we're seeing new drivers in the industry. Another helpful way to use this particular column is we can also use it for new bids. If there is a similar driver from a past bid, we can easily reference this to see which bid it was, and then go to that bid proposal and see if there's any slides that we can pull and reuse instead of recreating the wheel. We can save a lot of time. Next up, we have incumbent. So we want to know if we're winning against our competitors that have been present for years with the client. If we don't know who the incumbent is, it's probably a question that we would ask the A&D firm. We would just say, where has client ABC sourced their furniture in the past? Competition, that's very similar to incumbent. Who are we competing against? What is our win rate against that certain competitor? So with that competition column, we can easily track that. A&D and influencers. So who is the A&D firm? Or are there other influencers such as an owner's rep that will be involved? We have found that some A&D firms may favor a certain brand or a certain dealer. So we like to keep track of that. Next, we have winner's edge. So this is very similar to the value driver, only we want to know what the actual deciding factor is and if it was different than what they said the value driver was. So this one is just a fill in the blank, but some of the ones that we've had in the past are price, presentation delivery, professionalism, communication, company alignment to core values, and experience. So learning and growth is one of our core values at Workspace. So we always ask this along with feedback, whether we win or lose, so that we know what we're doing well or where we can improve. So that was kind of a high level of our RFP tracking sheet. Like I said, there are a lot of other columns in here, but those are just the ones that I really wanted to touch on that are valuable for kind of deciding whether or not we're going to bid on future projects. All right. So going into team approach, at Workspace, we found a lot of success with a team approach. so that we can leverage expertise and also divide work. Depending on the RFP, we may or may not have the following people involved. So on the sales team, we have one of our partners who has a sales background. And we also have our vice president of furniture. So those two individuals will both help with strategic pricing and product selection and recommendations. We have a sales manager who will assist as needed, an account manager who kind of actively works with all parties, just makes sure things are running smoothly and on track. They'll also work with the partner and vice president with pricing and product selection. We have a sales service coordinator who does the discounting and GP, all the pricing. And then over on the creative team, we have our design director who will assist as needed. We have another partner who she networks with a lot of our A&D community and has a good relationship with those. And she also has a marketing background. We have a strategic design specialist. So this is actually a newer role within the last year. She has an emphasis on training as well as customer engagement and thought leadership. She will help implement improvements in effectiveness, efficiency, and standardization. And she engages at a high level on key projects, which includes RFPs. So she will work on RFP proposals with the intent to pass off the project to a designer if we are awarded. She does have a design background and has access to CET. Additionally, we will include either a design supervisor or an interior designer who the project will be passed off to. So they will typically sit in on meetings to stay in the know of what's being specified and the reasoning behind it. And then they will also help work on the RFP if needed and if their workload will allow. Lastly, on the creative team, we have a brand and marketing coordinator who puts together our slides for the proposal. So as I mentioned, we've had a lot of success with this team approach and dividing up work and making sure that everybody knows what their role and responsibility is. All right, we are going to switch gears now and talk about CET templates. So CET has had the ability to create templates for a couple years now, and it is a game changer. We at Workspace have created a template specifically for RFPs, and I would highly recommend doing the same. Some of the reasons behind doing an RFP template is you can pre-block product. You can have product preloaded into your drawing that you generally lead with on RFPs. You can have tagging pre-applied as well as custom categories pre-applied. And ultimately, it saves time and you can start drawing before final product is decided on. So getting started, I understand putting together a template can be a daunting task, but here are some tips to getting started. I would start by putting together a team with varying years of experience as well as varying vertical markets. Look at past RFP documents and look for commonalities such as tagging, pricing requests for individual items versus areas, or product specific versus design forward, and what are the deliverables that they are all asking for. If you have a base template you use for day-to-day, this would be a great starting point. And then also think through your template support, how your template supports from transitioning from bid work to project work without a bunch of rework if you are awarded the project. So when Workspace put together our RFP template, we had a team of 5 people, which included our design manager, who was kind of, she oversaw the process. And then we also had experience on the team that ranged from anywhere between 5 years to 18 years of experience. And we had someone who worked on workplace, education, healthcare, as well as architectural product, all included on the team. We requested past RFP documents from the sales and design team, which we then divided between the group to review and take notes. After we reviewed them, we regrouped to share findings and found that tagging was kind of a commonality between all of the bids. However, they were all slightly a little bit different. For example, CH-01 versus CH1 for a chair. But it seems like most RFPs had some type of tagging. And then pricing requests ranged from item pricing to area pricing, or sometimes both. So we started with our base template, and then kind of divided work from there based on what current workloads were, and as well as CET expertise. If someone was super good at applying tags, then we made sure that person was kind of in charge of that portion of the template. We scheduled touch base meetings to keep things moving and to show progress or talk through changes that we wanted to make. And then once we had kind of our final product, we scheduled a training for the design team. So we wanted to make sure that everyone knew how to save the template and knew how to access it. And then B, it was important that everyone also knew how to use it. So we have designers who don't usually use blocks on a regular basis. So it was important for us to walk through the template and make sure that they knew how to use those blocks and kind of force them also to use blocks. We also wanted to point out all the special features and explain the why behind using it so that we could get buy-in from everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna hop into CET now, and I will show you what our RFP template looks like. So we started, like I said, we started with our base template, which includes this little grid here. It has notes and dimensions that are all pre-assigned with custom categorization. We have popular pick lists preloaded in here. And if I turn on my part tagging, we have this do not price box here so that nothing in here is being included in our pricing. We have to copy this over somewhere else to include it into that calculations. We also have our 0 point preloaded in here, and it is blocked and hidden in print. And then additionally, we have Photolab presets that are pre-applied. So that's kind of our base template. And then from there, we grew on top of that. So we created product groups based on our research. So those groups include chairs, which we've labeled CH. We have lounge, which we labeled L. Stools, which we labeled S. Tables is T. Storage is ST. We have workstations, which is WS. And then we have private offices, which is PO. So if we go to chairs, you see we have a bunch of chairs here, kind of in this grid-like pattern. each of these chairs are blocked and the block name matches our label or our key tag. If we hop into that block, we used a data field box. So we have it matching our block name so that if the bid calls it CH1 and not CH-1, we can just change the block name and that will automatically change our key tag. So if I have back up here and change this to CH1, sometimes you have to go into the block for it to change and click on it. But that is a lot faster than going in and manually changing it each time. It is also part tagged each block by the block name. So if we go here, you can see that the block is tagged outside and not inside of the block. That way, if you end up changing the product, the tagging will still be applied, whichever chair you choose. So that's the same for kind of all of our individual items here. You'll also see that we've color coded kind of all our chairs one color, all of our lounges one color, private offices, etc. Everything has its own color. So jumping over to the workstations, we have it kind of broken up. So we have a section for component blocks and we have a section for the actual group or the like 4-pod or 6-pod or whatever you have. We do have the component blocks tagged as do not price because they will be accounted for down here in the workstations, which is tagged under work surface dash and then whatever number it is. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate how this works. So you can really either build your component block first or start building your workstations first. It doesn't really matter. It's just whatever you prefer. I'm going to start with a workstation. I'm going to make this into a 4-pack. So I can just start bringing in my panels. So you'll want to make sure that it does kind of line up to what you have drawn in as a reference. I'm going to start with that and then hop back into my drawing. And then I'm going to go up to this WS-1 right hand and go in, draw my panels that I want to reference. Again, I want to make sure that this lines up to my rectangles here that I have drawn in. And then I'm going to delete them that I have those panels. And we'll drop in just some work surfaces. And then I'll do the same thing on my left hand. Drop those panels in. And then we'll add work surface. And we'll call that good. So now if we jump down to that 4-pack again, you can see now that it is wanting to reference that panel, and I can duplicate it and finish out my 4-pack. And there you go. So that is workstations. And then if we hop over to private offices, similar to workstations, we've created a right hand and a left hand for each private office typical, but both have the same item tag, so PO-01. We did this because we found that most A&D firms tag an office the same regardless of what hand it is. But we want to make sure that we account for a right hand and a left hand once we get to actually putting it into the drawing. So like I said, if we go to our part tagging, both of our right hand and left hand are under the same tag. Okay, so that's kind of all of the product. Additionally, we wanted to have an area where we could build additional blocks outside of just our singular item. So we have this working space here. So this is a universal template for all vertical markets. So we wanted to make sure we had this space. So for example, if we're working on an education RFP, this space could be used to bring in the components that make up a classroom. And then you can block that all together, name it classroom typical 1, and then easily bring that into your drawing. Other examples may include like a huddle room, if a certain huddle room is repeated multiple times, or a private office. We also created a rendering space. So we didn't want to accessorize inside of block since it would apply to all and potentially make your drawing size too big and slow it down. So we wanted to have this space where we could explode a block and then dress it up for just one rendering. And then down here, we included some commonly used accessories to easily add to a rendering without having to go out and look for them. And then if we go to that do not price tag, both the rendering and the working space are tagged as do not price so that they don't end up in your calculation views if you just need a single item price. Okay. Additionally, we have multiple alternates created in the template. So this first one that I've been going over is our RFP typicals in blocks. It's used as kind of a working space to update blocks without having to search your entire drawing to find the block that you need to update. And it also just has a quantity of 1 of each item. Then we also have this base floor plan. So this is where you would bring in your floor plan, your CAD plan, and then you could add all your furniture to the floor plan and tag this by part or by area. So going back to the RFP typicals, if we open up our part tagging, I kind of showed this earlier. So this will vary depending on what your company uses, but we use tag one for the individual tagging. Um, so everything here under tag one, we have our chairs that are under the blue. We have that do not price. We have our lounge, private office, uh, stools, storage, and tables and workstations. So those are all under the tag one category. And then if we go into calculations in this alternate, we have an article view that is preloaded, and it is grouped by tag one. So if we refresh here, there should be product in there. There we go. So all of my product is in here and grouped and subtotaled by their tag. And then we do also have it automatically filtering out the do not price items. Can show you. So that do not price is automatically unchecked. This article view is also saved as a reusable file so that if someone needs to make more than one bill of materials, they can easily go in here and load this RFP template. Okay. So then if we hop over to base floor plan, like I said, this is where we would part tag by area. So we use general markings. And this is going to most likely be how we would order as well. So since there's nothing in here, we won't have any product in our calculations, but we do have some preloaded in here, but these can be changed depending on what type of project you're working on and how you want to organize the areas. So once you have all your part tagging by general markings and go into this calculations, this is going to be grouped and sorted by that general markings. So we have that preloaded in here as well. And just like the other article view, this one is available to as a reusable file to add article views as well. Okay, so that is kind of it for our RFP template. So I'm going to jump into just a couple additional tips and tricks. So something you could do if you don't want to bounce back and forth between documents and your drawing is insert part of your RFP document into your actual CET drawing to use as a quick reference. So for example, say we're working on our workstations and I just want to hop in here. Actually, I'm going to go into the component. So if we go to CET tabs, it's what I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. Load image. Still getting used to the new interface. So you add in that little load image and you can double click. And I'm going to go and find document to reference. So I want to bring in this miniature bid document. So you can see here it's brought in all the pages. But I can kind of go through here and say which one I want to add. This is, we don't have any workstations in here, but say I had a workstation typical in here, I could select that page and insert. I have that page in my drawing that I can easily reference. So now when I'm putting this table in here, I can see what the specs are. They're right here, so I'm not having to jump back and forth between two different programs. And then once I'm done with it, I can either leave it there or I can just delete it and move on to the next thing. So um, it's kind of a helpful thing to have right there. Like I said, so you're not jumping back and forth. Another helpful tip. So if you are a PowerPoint user for your bid proposal, if you go into paper, there is an export to PowerPoint tool here. So you can build up all of your papers here and then just simply export it to PowerPoint and they will automatically be there and you can insert those into your proposal. So that, I believe, is all I have for you. So here's my contact information. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. I am happy to help.